Hi, I'm Jonathan Burnham, aka Kalos. I had a viewer post this in the comments, one of these ways. This is two tunes from supposedly pro players. Nalak28 is a pretty prolific tuner for Forza Horizon 5 and previous Forza 7. We're going to find out, these are now public. He posted them in my comments. Are they real? We're going to find out. If they are real, are they good? Do they help me improve my times? And more importantly than using the actual tune is, do I learn anything from it that I can apply to my own? And we're going to go over that in this video. So stick with me. I want to start this video off on a really quick, important note. The viewer shared these videos in the comments. However, and I will be going over them. However, these are not my tunes. You're going to see them. You can experiment with them. I am not going to share these. I'm not going to post them and I'm not going to share them online and in-game for you to download. I'm sorry, but they're not mine. I'm not going to put them on there and take credit for them. I will, however, see what I can learn from these tunes and kind of create my own version that I will share at the end of the video. The version I came up with is a bit low downforce and a bit understeery, specifically for Indy at high speed. And I'll share a higher downforce version with more aero for general purposes. But that being said, I just wanted to be clear. These are not my tunes. We're just using them for learning purposes. I will not be sharing these online for you to download. Sorry. You can copy them from here if you want to try them out. All right, on to the video. Okay, here we are back at Indianapolis. I didn't intend to do the Viper again in another video for a while. I was going to try and do some other cars with track guides. This isn't really a track guide. I haven't really mastered Indy to my pleasure. But here we are with the Viper at Indianapolis because we have two tunes, one from an unknown creator and one from Nalak28, that we're going to test out. The first thing I want to do is actually get on the track and use a stock tune first, and then I'm going to use the Road America tune first that I did a 2039 with. The reason I'm doing this is I want to set a benchmark for what I would expect from myself right now. Now keep in mind, track rubber actually goes past 100 when you're in multiplayer. You can actually set faster qualifying times in multiplayer towards the end of a practice than you can in free play. I guess unless you do like 100 to 200 laps without exiting, just pitting every time, you might be able to build up the rubber that gets built up in multiplayer. It goes past 100. I'm pretty sure of that. So keep in mind, at Indy, I find I'm about half a second faster in multiplayer than I am in free play testing. So keep that in mind when we're doing these actual tests. And like, I think my best time in testing with the Ford GT was a 122.6. I ran a 122 flat qualifying in multiplayer practice. In that same race, I do know the Viper is capable of 121 or under because I was SVR Spectre took the pole and did a 120.9. So the actual theory on this is that the one tune we're going to try out from the unknown creator does a 121, and the one from Nalak28 supposedly does a 120.5. So let's get into it. Let's set our standards. I'll show you the stock first, and then the Road America. I'm not going to show the full lap. I just want you to see the times, and then we'll have our standards. Let's go. Okay, this is the stock tune that we're watching. Keep in mind, that's not a dirty lap. I dirtied it on the last corner of the previous lap. We're going to end up with about a 123.89. I have to look at it as I'm going. And yeah, so that's our baseline for the stock tune. Okay, this is my Road America tune that I did 2039. I'm using it here at Indy. I ended up with, let's see, 122.340. Good lap. It took me a few laps to get used to it. It's a bit loose here, though. I would definitely make adjustments. All right, now on to the main event. We are going to start with the unknown creators tune that's supposed to do a 121 around Indianapolis GP. Question is, will it help me better my time of a 122.3? Just take a quick look at the tune. It's in the beginning on the comment, but we'll just look at it here in game. You got 28 on the front. Hold on. You've got pretty standard gearing. I think it's the same as the stock. This looks pretty normal, kind of like what I would do. A little low on the rear camber, but whatever. This is where it gets weird. 1 on the front, 40 in the back. That's a lot of oversteer. You can see the front springs and rear springs are really low. They're the lowest ride heights, and he's definitely lower in the back. So there's a bit of understeer he's trying to get in there through the suspension. Damping, this typical old Forza tricks. 1 on the front, 13 on the rear. That higher rebound in the Forza game, the way it works is it just makes weight transfer quicker. So you, like, if you're going through the S's, you can go from side to side much quicker. This is where things really get strange. You can see for the roll center height, he went 3.9 on the front, -4 on the rear. Anti-dive, he raised that up a good bit. I do find raising the anti-dive is pretty useful because it allows you better control of your brake balance. So brake balance doesn't make as big a difference. Anti-squat all the way at 60. That's major oversteer. However, the big one really is the roll center height offset. Those small numbers there make a massive difference. He's got an 8, almost 8 from the front to the rear. And what that does is it makes the car, I'll talk about it while we drive around the track, but just know that that's a massive amount of understeer. In typical max front, low rear, 48 on the brake balance. I didn't use the brake pressure that he had set. I think it was like 130 or 200, something like that. I'm on brake pedals. I want 100 brake pressure. And acceleration, again, that's a lot of oversteer on exit. And deceleration 15 is pretty normal. So without that, let's get into the lap. This is my lap in the unknown creators tune. I was shocked. You saw how weird the settings were. This car was super easy to handle and very stable. It really had a good, nice kind of force feel when I turned left or when I turned, and when the rear had pretty good control of the rear. It just all around was really good. There was some weirdness to it though. I would get unexpected understeer at key moments in some of the corners. And if you look at the roll center description, it does say it has potential to lift the car off the ground, and I think that's what's happening because it's in weird spots. It's not like, oh, I'm getting understeer. It's like, oh, I'm turning fine, then sudden understeer, then I turn fine again. Really bizarre. But you know what? This is a really good tune, especially if you're just jumping in the multiplayer. I definitely recommend it. It works really well. Just breeds confidence. It's not the best car for every track. I've tested it at a few different tracks. Definitely slower at Road America than my tune. My Road America tune was faster at Lime Rock regular. But wow. And I did do, you can see I did a 122.19 already. And right here, there you go, 122 flat. I'm about a second off of the supposed time. I think that's really good. I really like this car. Okay, after we ran that last tune, I'm starting to feel that these are probably legit tunes. So the last one was really good. I'm curious to see what Nalak28's personal tune, what that really means and what it really behaves like. So we'll go through it. I'll show you the tire pressures, 28, 27, really almost what I had, just 0.5 higher on both. Gearing is pretty standard stock, I think, for the Viper. He's doing camber 1.8, 1.2. Looks, you know, pretty normal. Again, with a 00 and 7 front caster. Again, we have that 3.3. He goes a little higher on the front, but almost 140 rear. So, okay, this seems to be a common theme. It's almost like they took the Forza 7 basis and are trying to start there and then make the cars drivable. He actually stiffens his springs a little bit compared to the other guy who lowered them. Actually, really standard damper settings. He actually pretty high on both. This is where it gets weird. Roll center offsite, height rear. That means that rear is going to be super slippery. You can see he only has a 4 difference between the front and rear. So he went pretty stiff on the front, which creates a lot of understeer, especially on like kind of corner entry, the first half of the corner, and into mid corner based on where it is to the rear. But it affects the start to the apex more, whereas the rear is gonna that kind of rear is gonna affect almost the whole corner. You see, he went -50 on the anti-squat to try and offset that. So the curious thing is, what is this going to do? We're really stiff on the anti-dive. So you have basically a super kind of stiff car that has what's probably going to be a really loose rear end. Again, with a max front and no rear. 51 on the brake balance. I did lower the pressure to 100 because I'm on the wheel. And the acceleration, it's actually pretty low. I mean, this is not too far off of stock. So let's get on the track and see how this thing behaves. I'm a little scared of it. All right, now we are probably driving Nalak's personal tune. You can tell these are experimental tunes, so this might not probably be his final tune. One of the first things I noticed, he did a 123 on my very first lap, is that the rear end feels like it's on rollers. It really does. The force feedback ends up being really weak, and the rear end just kind of follows wherever you go. You can control it if you're super smooth and careful on the inputs, but even with a wheel, I was finding that really difficult. It just wants to swing around super easily, and it's just a little outside of the precision that I can do with the wheel. They're probably better players. That being said, you can see I'm quite a bit up on this lap, and I actually have a really good lap here. And I had a very hard time replicating it though, and that's really where I had issues, is that consistency was just really difficult. I have no doubt that with a pro player like Nalak and some of the others, they can handle this tune. And it is definitely fast. I'm not going to doubt that they did a 120.5. I think it might be a little easier with a controller. And there's also a little bit of that coast to rotate in this tune. And you can see they're trying to kind of recreate that. And there's advantage to that. That's for another video. But yeah, 122, 160 was the best I could get with it, and I really wasn't able to replicate that. Quick note before we get into the verdict. Tunes aren't magic pills. They're not necessarily going to make you faster if you aren't already consistent at the track. So really what it comes down to, you don't even necessarily need to download a tune if you're way off the pace. You just need to work on getting consistent. The only way a tune might help you there is if you can make the car easier to drive. So it might not be, pro tunes tend to be very loose and harder to control than maybe a safer tune that might be better for you to get better lap time. So keep that in mind anytime you're looking at my tunes or we're examining someone else's tunes. I'm always looking to see if it helps me. And in the end, it might help you if you're already getting really solid, good, consistent times. You just want to see, maybe it's the car that gets you a little more. So keep that in mind anytime we do this. So there you have it. We kind of have a verdict. I believe these tunes are actually legit. I have no doubt that second tune is Nalak's personal tune. The first tune, I could definitely recommend to anybody. I'm not sharing it. You can copy it from here, or if you find it online, know the creator, you can find it. Nalak's personal tune might not be shared either. I wouldn't recommend that one except for the most advanced players who have really fine control. I was struggling to really keep the rear end under control. So the first one is very beginner friendly. It's the kind of car you could just jump in and take to any track and be confident that it's going to perform. It's not going to be the best at every track. It was definitely slower at Road America than my tune. It was slower at Lime Rock, but it was in the Lime Rock Alt than my Road America tune was. And then here though, really good. But what I really want to know is what can we learn from this, right? So what is the important part from doing this video? We can just look at their tunes and go, oh yeah, they're great. We compare them, whatever. Let's actually dive into kind of what they did and what it does. And then I'm going to create my own tune based on that and see if I can't improve my Road America times farther. So without further ado, let's get into what they're doing. Okay, I'm in my tune right here. But before I kind of go into what my tune is and the decisions I made, let's talk about suspension geometry. Because that's really what we want to know, right? You can tell that these two tunes we checked were experimental tunes. So what did we learn from them? Well, one thing we learned is you can really create a stable car that wants to return to its normal state by raising the front roll center and reducing the rear roll center. Now, it depends on the car. When this is actually how I got my this is how I actually got my KTM tune to rotate. Is I actually did the opposite of this. The KTM tune did not want to rotate at all, so I lowered the front into the negatives and increased the rear into the positives to really create the rotation, which allowed me to get high speed rotation and even low speed rotation. So you can definitely do this with geometry. The front tends to affect the front roll center height tends to affect, like if you go up on it, your turn in. So if you need a quicker turn in, you can lower it a little bit. If you need but keep in mind, just little changes on this really affects the car a lot. On PC, I can use my mouse to move it by 0.1. So you see 1.8, I can go to 1.7. The problem is if you're using a keyboard or a controller or your wheel, it goes in like 0.4s. So I don't know if this, unless you have a keyboard hooked to your Xbox, or a mouse, you probably won't be able to really get the most out of this. You'll need a mouse on PC. I don't know why it's like this. Same with the anti-geometry at the bottom. But however, I actually used the front roll center before I even tested these cars on the Audi to make it much more stable by raising it in a similar vein to this. I didn't lower the rear though. So what I've done with this car is I'm kind of doing what the Unknown creator did, just not to the extreme level that he did it. I want a car that feels good for me. There was a bit of springiness in his car and some unnatural understeer at certain points. So I don't want to go that extreme. So I'm going to start off with that super stable car with 1.8 in the front and in the rear. I think I raised the anti-dive a little bit. That was enough for me. And the anti-squat, I'm not going to the extreme he had it at. I really like a stable rear end. I think I had it at 10.2. Then I lowered it, and I didn't like 9.7, so I had to play around with the mouse to get this to move into so it moves in 0.5s, and I couldn't with the mouse get 9.8 exact. So as long as I got like a 10.3 or 11.3, I knew I could bring it down to 9.8, and that really gave me the stable rear end that I was looking for. So this is how you can use suspension geometry in your builds. You can use it to correct certain behaviors. I would say what they were doing is they were actually trying to take old Forza tricks and make those work in this game. And the other thing they're trying to recreate with especially Nalak's tune is that rotation on coasting that Turn 10 said they did a lot of work to remove because it's unrealistic. but they put suspension geometry in, and now players are finding ways to recreate that effect. And it's very useful for controller players. And if you get the rotation sharp enough, it's better than even trail braking in and out, because you can actually straight line brake, coast to rotate really fast, and just hammer the gas. Whereas if you're using standard trail braking, there's that modulation of the brake as you come off, and modulation as the throttle as you go on. So I can see why they're trying to recreate that effect. That being said, this is kind of how you can use anti-dive. You can definitely probably take the stock and go up on this. I find it very useful if you want to adjust the brake balance, but just going down one is too much. You can raise the anti-dive and then lower the brake balance, and it won't affect it as much. The anti-squat is really just kind of about stabilizing the rear end. I have a Ford GT build that actually worked on this too, that kind of replicated the other build, but I still had to keep the anti-squat in the negative. So it really depends on the car as well. I'm not telling you exactly how you can use this and where to use it in the process. I'm just trying to explain it so that you can use it for experimentation. Take a look at what they did with their tunes, and then, what I'm saying here, and use that to experiment with it. That being said, let's get into my build. So I started with my Road America tune. I kept the same gearing, same tire pressures, 27.5, 26.5, same alignment, anti-roll bars. So I was able, since I stabilized the car in the same way, instead of doing 140, I found that 1936 worked at this level, and it worked really well for me. I went a little lower on the springs, but not by much. I found that I was pretty happy where they're at, that I didn't need to just drop them a whole lot. I could be wrong. I might get more out of my tune if I drop them below 400, but this was a good balance for me. I did go up on the dampers. I found that with this tune that I had built, I needed a little more weight transfer on the S-curves, so I ended up going up a little bit. I left my bump stiffness the same. Again, we went over this, so I went 1.8 in the rear, negative 1.9 in the rear, and 1.8 up on the front. Really creates that stable car, but not to the kind of rubbery effect that the Unknown Creator did. A little more anti-dive, and 9.8 for the anti-squat. Aero, at Indy, I like to go down a little on the front aero, because I don't like getting those oversteer moments on the very last corner. And this was a good balance for me. I found that the car, with the other adjustments I made the car, it was nimble through the slow corners, and this gave me that, kind of, I can trust that the car is just going to go where I point it on the last corner. And then 48 on the brake balance, and 70-15. Nothing super extravagant on the diff. So that's what I came up with. Let's see how I did. So this is the lap I did with my adjusted tune from Road America. I really like the way this car handles. It's not as extreme as the other one. I don't get those weird sense of understeer, and it just really fills me with confidence to push and experiment with different tracks. So I was getting a lot of 121.8s and 129.9s, but I knew I had the deltas to get much better. So yeah, I actually got a 121.5, but forgot to hit the record button. So what you're going to see here is pretty close to that, but not quite. I had to go back and redo it. Yeah, I really like this. This is really an Indy GP tune. I will share it if you want to use it for Indy, but it has a bit of understeer at high speeds and really won't be that great on other tracks. So I will create a tune that has a little more oversteer on the front and share that for a more general jump in and use tune. But yeah, no, I really liked this car. I really felt I could push it and keep control of it, and it felt natural. So I'm glad I learned something, and as you can see, as I cross the line, fairly close, 121.656. And again, I'll show the other one here. I did get a 121.5, and I think this car is capable, in my hands, if I work at it and get better at the track, is probably capable of 121.3s or 121.2s. So there you have it. Okay, guys, this is my general tune for the Viper, my new one. I should be good at most tracks. Uh, I I liked it. I took it to Suzuka, and I did a 2-minute two, and I'll show you just a short clip of that real quick.
One more lap.
All right, you saw the 202. I actually had deltas for a few different laps to potentially push a 159.9. So I feel like it's pretty solid. I didn't really tune it for Suzuka. It just was able to go there and really perform pretty well. So really the only differences between it and the Indy build is that I lowered this suspension a bit, or the anti-roll bars just a tiny bit, and especially in the rear, just give me a little more rear stability at Suzuka. Didn't change the springs, didn't change the damping, didn't change the suspension geometry. Um, 344 on the front and 352 on the rear. Just gives me stability going through it, so it gives you that just a little bit of confidence. So this might not be the optimal tune for many tracks, and it's not going to be the fastest in a straight line, but it should be solid all the way around with this aero. 58 on the brakes, and then I went from 69 to 70, or no, I think it stuck it at 70. So 70 and 15 for acceleration decel. I recommend this one if you just want a general tune for most tracks. It should be a lot more stable than my Mid-Ohio one. So, all right, that concludes this video. You have 2 new tunes you can download. If you want a copy and try out the other pro tunes for yourself, give it a shot. But I'm not going to share those. The 2 tunes are named, I have a general tune, and then it shows the Suzuka time in the description, and then the Indianapolis GP one. That was a 121.5. So if you want to try those out, give them a shot. Uh, keep in mind, tunes aren't magic pills, and I hope to see you again. Have a good day. Have a good week. Cheers.